Well, now we get to talk to the clients. So we're going to get the client's point of view and actually on what clients want and need. So Casey was great at sort of outlining that. Marla has been awesome about talking about the quantum age of marketing. But now let's bring up our client panel, get their perspective on everything that's going on. Format for this is a little bit different. Each are going to come up here. They're going to do a quick presentation, and then we're going to go into Q&A. Scott Nelson from Panera Bread, unfortunately, was a victim of Chicago snow and was not able to get a flight to be here, so he won't be joining us today. But Tanuja, Pam, and Jim are here, and I'm going to let them kick it off with their presentations and introduce themselves formally, and then we'll get into it a little bit more. Okay, let's give it up. Jim is first.
I'm first.
Thank you. So you can formally introduce yourself in this mix. And
my name is Jim Lowe. I'm formally introducing myself. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm the EVP for Marketing and Sales for Schuman Cheese. It's a family-owned cheese company based in New Jersey. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, Pam.
I'm Pam Piligian. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal, I don't know, anybody in the audience serve in the military? No? Anybody who is a child of someone who served? You're all eligible for membership, so see me afterwards. But thank you. But anyway, the reason I say that is because obviously our brand is a little bit unique in that you have to be able to join before you can buy anything. So I'll talk a little bit about the perspective and understanding that on behalf of our 8 million members. And thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanuja Singeetham. I'm the Vice President of Digital Marketing at BEHR Paint Company. And I'll talk a little bit about how even a category and a brand like BEHR is something people don't think of when they think about paint, playing in all these spaces, being digitally innovative, embracing change. So I'll share a little bit about that. Prior to my 5 years at BEHR, though, I spent 21 years at Nestle. And so definitely rooted in that CPG kind of thinking, working with a lot of agency partners over those years, and sort of how that has changed and how now that I'm in a role to make some of those decisions, how I look at it at BEHR.
Excellent. So Tanuja, you're going to kick us off.
Correct.
Yeah,
and
so you can go right up there.
Great. Okay, so really excited. Thanks for having me here. It was great listening to all of that content this morning. Hopefully some of the things that I'm going to mention actually really line up really nicely with some of the things that you heard as well. Just a little bit about the paint business, because when I first came into it, I didn't know anything about paint, the category at all. Again, my career was in food and bev. But BEHR Paint Company, so we're actually part of Masco, a company that's out of Michigan. BEHR Paint is located in Southern California in Santa Ana. Our business, we're actually $2.2 billion in business. Our flagship brand is BEHR Paint, actually. We have exclusivity to the Home Depot, good and bad. A lot of times consumers think we are owned by the Home Depot. So there's sort of an interesting push and pull when it comes to that. But we are the leaders in DIY in paint. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, and there's some of our competitors. Our other part of the business, because we've relied so heavily on Home Depot, we're sort of reliant on their success and their channel relevancy, them as a retailer being relevant. So we've really been focusing more on diversification. So we have our other brand called Kills. Some of you might be familiar with it, especially if you've done DIY project. It's the #1 primer brand in America. So, and in the primer business, why you need it still is that it helps solve a lot of problems. So whether it's mold and mildew and other things, or get the best color, it's that brand. And that brand, unlike being exclusive to the Home Depot, we can go anywhere with that brand. So we do have opportunities in that. Because we needed to expand our paint portfolio outside of Home Depot, we launched a series of paint brands under Kills. You might be familiar with Magnolia, a brand that we licensed through Chip and Joanna Gaines. We have a brand for Walmart. We have a brand for Amazon. So again, really has tried to get us to diversify into other channels. And we have our competitor down there, Zinsser. And then on the far right, what's happening in our business, which is nothing that's probably very familiar or similar to a lot of other brands in the marketplace. So the paint business is broken out into two major groups. The top one is the DIY segment. So literally, it's people who buy paint and do it themselves, so DIY. That is where we're number one. And a big part of that is our footprint. Home Depot is the largest retailer of paint. So, and we have exclusivity. So that is where we're 28% share of the market. Unfortunately, that part of the business is declining as a category. More and more people are shifting to the second one, which is the pro segment. So these are people, we call them do-it-for-me consumers, who would prefer to have a contractor or somebody else do the painting. So because of that, the contract business, we don't have a big share in. Brands like Sherwin-Williams and different other brands out there have really built a huge relationship over the years with contractors. They provide specialized service. Contractors generally don't like to go to Home Depot, and so they see it as a place for consumers in general. So as that part of the business continues to grow, and we only have a 4% share. So there are some big challenges for us from a business standpoint is how do we compete, and this is where some of the things I'll talk to you about, some of our challenges. But again, we're declining, the DIY in general, so it's not just us, is a declining segment. Pro is increasing. How do we get to play? So here's a couple of our business challenges, and one of the things that I always say is always start with asking the clients about their business challenges, because when you're lined up with that, then everything makes sense. So here's what happens. I'm sure, has everybody here at some point gone to buy paint at some point? Okay. So one of the challenges we have, and this is the biggest challenges that keep people from buying the paint. And initially when you're thinking, when I first got in, I'm like, oh, paint's not exactly the sexy stuff, it's a category, and people aren't just talking about paint in general at dinner. So as a category as a whole, it's not really about what's in the can. Where we do ladder up, which is much more significant and meaningful, is color. Right? We really try to own color. Color is so meaningful. Since you were a kid, you used to walk up to another kid and say, what's your favorite color? Right? It's always one of those questions you ask. It's so much a part of who we are, how we define ourselves. Well, the biggest issue is why we don't get the sale at the end of the day is color selection. And why do you say that? It's because of this monstrosity on the far right, right? You go into a store, 3,000 colors to choose from, and everybody goes in with some mindset, but then they walk out because they can't pick a color. So we've done some analysis with the Home Depot that we have left over $400 million on the table because people walk out because they just can't pick the color they want. So what can we do there? Being more relevant on the consumer journey. Luckily, we're in a category that actually is high involvement, which you wouldn't think. When I worked in CPG, we didn't get much traffic to our websites. Basically, people just came for coupons, right? So, but in our category, we get a ton of traffic. We get over 40,000 people a day coming to our website. It's a brand. So when they're shopping through here, we have a chance, and the journey is huge because it starts with people entering from some sort of need state. Bought a new home, new baby, maybe want a new look, maybe there's damage you need to fix. But it goes all the way through to researching because we can intercept them through all the Pinterest, they watch HGTV, all the shows, the print, all the way through to YouTube. We're very significant in YouTube because people go, oh, can I do it myself? Because it's more than paint, it's usually a project, a home renovation. Like, is this something, can I paint my own furniture? Can I do some of the stuff I want to do? All the way through to choosing a brand, getting samples, buying online. But we go way after too. So not only do people come back, give reviews, but everybody shares the project they did. It's a really big part of showing off their new room transformations and makeovers. So we go all the way through, and that also is a nice loop. And the last part is differentiate from the competition. The category doesn't have a ton of differentiation. BEHR actually invented paint and primer in one. We actually created it. But now everybody has it. And we're all saying the same messages, durability, stains. Well, guess what? The more you have of durability, the less often you need to paint. So we're sort of like killing ourselves in the category that, why do they need to paint anymore? So these challenges that we're facing, and again, in a category and segment that's declining, is making us further have to be more innovative in different ways. So here are some of the things. This is an outline of top things that came out of between Kantar and Gartner, different groups. I also sit on the Google Brand Council, so a lot of times we're working with Google and partners to try to figure out what we can do as well. On the left, you see there's top trends. These were done by the experts through Kantar that said over the next 3 to 5 years where you should be focusing, and this is for retailers and brands. So this is a list I share internally, and I really go through and say, hey, when we're going through our agency partners, everything, how are you helping us do this? Because again, this is outside of paint. This is just in general, right? You can see some common themes that came up this morning, like personalization, some of those things, frictionless experiences. All of that's in our world because we have to help people find that right color. We've worked, one of our agency partners who's here, Marcus Thomas, has helped us come up with tools. We do pins to palettes where we scan your pins from Pinterest. We do things like a feeling and color tool that helps you answer a series of questions, color discovery, to end up with a color. We've taken that over now, and again, as a paint brand, you don't expect us to be doing AI, but we actually launched a program with IBM Watson, and we've just won some awards for it, where we can help people connect it to the Weather Channel, because you can't paint when it's raining generally, and we've done a lot there. So what I'd say is that no matter what the category your client is in, to really look at the trends that are happening out there because it's affecting us all. I tell my people internally, from leadership to my team, we have to figure out how to act like a star. We have to be the Netflix, right? They don't make you sort through 8,000 movie titles. They help you pick stuff. We can't have them sort through 3,000 colors. We got to help you pick that right color because again, that's money that we're leaving on the table every time they walk out. And data, I'm trying to drive more of a data decision group. So we spend so much time and money in data, and the fortunate thing is data can be backward, where we're looking at what happened and study it, or it can be forward to look at the trends that are emerging and what's coming, and really sort of looking at both to come up with a path forward. And the right are trends that the experts have said are the things that are going to be what people are buying. So we look at these kinds of trends in general and really try to hone in on where we define our partners, who we need, what are the gaps, what do we have in-house, do we know how to do this, and how do we test and learn? So, and sorry, the last thing I'll leave you with is a key takeaway overall, and I always say it internally, for growth, experience-centric brand strategy is required to win moving forward. And that's where we're here, where we look for partners to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to show this slide up front as a starting point to kind of say, here's my disclaimer, not only on my Twitter feed, because our legal people make me say it, Navy Federal, all views and comments are my own, but I also thought as a new client, I've only been on client side almost 24 months, so according to somebody's prediction, I'm 2 months away from losing my job. Hopefully that's not true. Hopefully that's not true. But anyway, it's interesting, and then a lot of what Chris talked about this morning and a lot of what Casey talked about, it's like every part of me wanted to jump up and say, hey, man, I mean, listen to what they're saying. It is very clear in terms of what's happening. Your competitors are changing. The mindset is changing. I loved your survey on what % of the time the CMOs spend with the agency. When I was approached about this job, the client said to me, so you'll see that you spend a lot less time with the agency than you thought. And I thought, oh, well, that was for my predecessor. That's not true. But then I looked at it, and only about 30% of my time is spent with the agency, and some weeks a lot less. It's a harder job to keep your pulse on what's happening with the agency, and are you really using that right resource? So hopefully I'll give you a couple of tips in terms of what helps us do that. I did want to start with playing a television spot, simply because, as I mentioned, we are the largest credit union. We have 8 million members, 100 billion in assets, so very big, but by the same token, very specialized with a niche audience that we serve. And because of that, I thought some of you may not be familiar with this. I'll play a spot real quickly just as an introduction.
You typing in the coordinates?
No, I'm paying my brother back before we get going. He scored me a Billy Big Mouth bass.
The singing raw fish.
For the man cave.
I love those things.
Take me to the river.
Drive me in the water.
Secure mobile banking from Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
So we obviously use this work to hopefully relate to the target audience. Anybody who's been in the military will tell you there is a lot of standing around waiting. And while you're waiting, you have a lot of those conversations just about everyday life. So these actors are portraying two Marines in their snow uniforms and just what would happen in terms of those regular conversations. And then obviously talk about our products and services. So before I talk a little bit about how to work best with us, I'm going to tell you how not to. Hopefully the email I show doesn't belong to anybody in this room, but I will tell you, I get one of these about once a month, and they are very uninspiring. It's like for many banks, we're not a bank. Oh, sorry, did I go too fast? See, it was so, I didn't want anyone to be embarrassed. You know, speaking with many banks, we're not a bank, we're seeing a growing need for customer experience. Well, if you had acknowledged that we won the #1 rated CX bank and credit union in the nation from Forrester, that would have been a very different letter than just saying, oh, she wants customer experience. The next thing is modernize your company, better position your company. I would like to make, if it would like to make sense to contact, then I'll have our CEO call you, who's this person, who will share how we can talk to you. What day works for you? Never, is the answer. So, if you are sending these emails, stop. And the reason I wanted to show this and share this is your competitive set has changed. You probably know this from hearing many of the speakers today, but you know, we've got Accenture in doing a big data project for us. Guess what they do? We talk a lot about digital and how they can help agencies be better and smarter and clients be better and smarter about it. Interesting small world story. I think we all know the agency world is incredibly small. I met our lead at Accenture, and at the end of the meeting, he came up to me and he said, I met you 25 years ago. And I said, what? He said, you interviewed me for an internship when you were at BBDO. And I remembered him because he was right out of school, and we had like $1.97 to pay him. But we loved the idea of data. I mean, we were thinking about it early. We just couldn't afford it, and we weren't allocating the right resources to have those kind of data technicians at the table. So now he runs a big fat group at Accenture and makes all the money in the world. But anyway, so the moral of that story is be nice to who you interview, and even interns, because they could come back to be partners. Anyway, so we think about like Accenture. I went to the Adobe conference. Adobe is there and talking about, you know, your own DMP and doing your own programmatic, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, they've got a relationship, you've already got a relationship with them. They're involved in your data if you're the client. So it's natural for them to say, here's what else we can do, and here's how much money you could save. So think about those, think broader about your competitors, more so than just the people you're in this room with. I do have 24 months on the other side, as I mentioned. I did want to say it's so important that you understand how different the job is. I didn't understand that from a long time on the agency side. I want the agency still to be the best part of my day. Maybe from growing up in that business, there's still the ad geek in me that's happy when we have something on the calendars that we're going to chat and talk. That's important. But the way you stay there is staying focused on briefs. Briefs matter. We sell them in, we pitch them, we internally align people on them. So then when the agency shows up with something that's like, oh, this isn't a brief, but we thought you'd like this idea, I just start cringing. So you can show those ideas, but show them at a separate forum. Don't make them part of that. The brief is sacred. We treat it that way, and we hope you do too. CTO and CFO are best buddies. And I share that with you in the context of not just as somebody who's looking for new BFFs, but know that when we get recommendations from you, often we end up taking it to the CTO or the CFO to get their buy-in and their encouragement. And they will both look at them with very different metrics. One of the things I wanted to say on a CTO interesting thing is, and I did this, I was from the agency side, when there's a new piece of software, new technology, new tracking, especially relative to digital, how often do we minimize the pain or the onboarding process? No one? You're all lying. I think we all do because we're optimists. We look at it and we say, here's what this could do, and it's only going to take this much time. It's only going to be this kind of resource needs. So on the client side, we get in line, we put our staffing requests, we define the scope as that on the minimum. And then what do you think happens when it's not the minimum? I get kicked back to the back of the line, which means I'm back in line again. You know, sometimes things get, other people are ahead of me, so it could be months and months and months before I get back and get my project finished. So help us define the scope on any onboarding for new technology in a way that's realistic. Even make it bigger. I can give back hours free. I can't get new hours free. And the same thing with a CFO. A CFO is going to look at any incremental investment or any investment that requires a multi-tier or multi-year commitment. Like we are the military appreciation partner for the Navy, for the National Hockey League, and that's been a great partnership. But signing off on that 3 years in a row and a 3-year commitment means committing to dollars that I don't always have. You know, I have this year's blessing on AFP. So we're making those cases as an investment. Here's why this works. It's not that we're doubting you when we want more information. We just need to be able to say, this is an investment, and here's the expected return, and here's why it makes sense. Show the rationale, show the work. The other thing is, help me market marketing. And I say that because as a service brand, there's 17,000 people that work at Navy Federal Credit Union. A lot of those are member-facing. I want them to get that our members are the mission. I want them to live that. Our culture is built around that member orientation, but it isn't always, so the culture is there in terms of the member experience, but the way we talk about it is a little bit different from marketing. So the more you can help me market what we do and what that means for the service suppliers, the better off we are. The next bullet point on here, I couldn't change my slides after Casey just spoke, but when he said what happens when you have a former agency person that goes client side, hopefully I'm one of those that knows enough to do good, not evil. But my number one rule is no BS. I know better and respect that and know that, because as soon as you don't, the trust plummets. So I don't know if you have a way on your side where you develop client personas. If you have clients that are former agency people, you should make a special note on their persona that says, don't ever, 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 ever go there with this person because they'll know better. Personally, I think that's one of the things. How many of you saw the ANA survey on trust between agencies and clients? Yep. Anybody alarmed that 28% of the people responding to the survey said that the trust in the last 3 years has gone down? Interesting enough, when I looked back at their record 3 years ago, when they fielded that same survey, only 12% of clients said that trust was declining. So the transparency is important, no BS, keep straightforward, et cetera. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about quickly was just the focus on the metrics that matter. And I'm purposeful in terms of, yes, it's return on investment, but often the metrics that matter, just like we talked about here with a lot of other client challenges, sometimes we're working on speed. How fast can we get out there? How simple can we make this for a member? How many downloads can we get on an app? So make sure you're focused on delivering those same metrics, because sometimes time matters. So if the whole thing was trying to get us to market faster, a perfect product that's late doesn't deliver against those metrics. So just ask that you think holistically about those metrics that matter, and that will really help keep the relationship strong and the partnership strong, because we need what you do. There's not the same type of resources on the client side. We just need to work better together to make it happen.
Great.
So first, it's Watertown Blue, but it was a horse race with Misty Sea Breeze, which was the other color for my bathroom, so thank you. Yeah. Really, really tough. So hi again, everyone. I wanted to share a few thoughts on the mind of the client. This really would only take a minute, but I'm trying to fill out a little bit of time because it's my mind. So I am going to give you a little background on me, share a little bit how I approach agency relationships, and then hopefully answer a few questions that were shared with us before today. So first, a little background on me. I've been in marketing, brand management, sales for about 20 years now. About 17, 18 of those was spent at Nabisco, then Kraft, then Mondelez. And then finally, I ended my career, that's actually successor companies at Enjoy Life Foods, where I was a general manager. After I was general manager for 2 years, I decided that I would go to a company that didn't have red in its logo. So I went and joined Schuman Cheese. So there's no red in there, and I was very happy about that. I'm going to come back to Schuman Cheese in a minute. This is my background. This is what's on my resume. But if you really want to get inside my mind, it's helpful to ask what I was doing before I came into business. And what I was doing is I was a social worker, and then I was a political aide working on Capitol Hill. Now this matters because in those roles, I was confronted with people who had very urgent needs. Sometimes they were only perceived urgent needs, but very urgent needs. But they also had a very high degree of skepticism about the solution that I would offer them. And so I got a master's course very quickly in having to understand where someone was coming from, what their needs were, how to connect with them, and to offer them a solution that I believed would work for them and was in the interest of my organization or my boss, depending on the time. So I guess the lesson here is if you want to get inside the mind of your client, it'd be helpful to understand where that client's mind was formed, and this was a really important one for me. After I came out of Enjoy Life, I went to Schuman Cheese. Schuman Cheese is a family-owned company. It's a family that has a huge passion and love for cheese. Began 75 years ago in 1945, where they began to import Parmigiano Reggiano cheese from Italy as well as other Italian cheeses. They then began to convert those cheeses into shreds and grates and things like that, because while it is delicious, a 75-pound of Parmigiano Reggiano is a very inconvenient form. So their passion for cheese took them from Italy and around the world looking for great cheese, great milk to make great cheese. And in 2006, they came back to the United States and began to make cheese at a creamery in Turtle Lake, Wisconsin, which someone helped me cite today is an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of Minneapolis. They've been making cheese, award-winning cheese there since 2006. We launched that cheese this year under our Cello brand, and we did that because we have a unique point of difference. We use a copper kettle. We're the only cheese company in the United States making Italian hard cheese, Italian-style hard cheese in a copper kettle. It makes a difference. Come see me after. So that's kind of where I am. Now, when I came to Schuman Cheese 2 years ago, we had no marketing agency. I was a very young organization in terms of marketing, although been around since 1945. So I had to go through and think about how am I going to conduct a pitch and how am I going to hopefully conduct an agency relationship afterwards. So I'm going to share my three principles for how that relationship should be ordered. So the first is honesty. You cannot have a relationship if you're not honest. And when I approach relationships, I try really hard to be clear about my priorities, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And I do that for a few reasons. The first is because I want you to know I don't want you to be surprised by my business problems. The second is because I want you to know that I need a business partner. We talked about that a little bit earlier today. I really mean it. I want a business partner, and that's not because I think my agency is going to solve all my problems. It's because it's important for my agency to know the context in which my problems will be solved. So very, very important to me. And the third reason is I expect that same honesty from you. I know you have a P&L. I know you have your own personal problems. I know you're trying to grow just like me. I may not know the specifics of your issues, but let's share our specifics with one another so we can be mutually understanding our business and have a mutual path to growth. So honesty is the first thing. If you have honesty, you can go from there to love or empathy. You can call it what you want depending on how touchy and feely you like to be. I think it is love because it's a genuine concern for each other and understanding of your business. Now, you know, everyone here puts tremendous number of hours into your work. Even though work isn't the whole of who you are, it's a very important piece of expression of who you are. It's an expression of what you do, who you are, and what you're about. It's easy to understand that when you're talking about a creative, right? When you can actually see the work. But it's also true for someone who's in business development, who's in account management. So I said case management. I'm falling back into my social work days. Account management, in finance, anything else, or even on the client side. So having empathy and love for what that other person is doing really helps you connect and understand what's going to drive the business together. It's a trust factor, and it's really important. If you have honesty and love, then you can move on to the next thing, which is war or conflict. Because you know as well as I do that it's in conflict that we can create the solutions that won't be there if we just kind of dance around the issue and we play nice with each other. The reason that people can't get to this creative conflict is because of a lack of honesty and a lack of love and empathy for each other's business. And I really believe that, and I think it's what's critical for us to be good partners. So that's what's in my mind. As I said, 2 years ago, I had to conduct a search, a pitch, an RFP, whatever hated term you'd like to share. So I wanted to go through and talk to that. I'm sorry, I'm going to get that at the end here. I'm going to go through some questions first that were asked to me. The first was, what are my challenges with consumers? So I have a real fundamental belief that people haven't changed. We talked a lot about change in a rapid technology change. We went from 350 vendors to 7,000 MarTech vendors, a huge change. But here's the thing, Maslow's hierarchy of needs still rules. People still have trouble telling you what they want or what they need, sometimes because they can't, sometimes because they won't. And people are still attracted to things that are new and different and exciting, but also comforted by what's familiar. So you take that paradox and go. Those are the truths about people, and I think they're going to be true no matter what technology washes over us from one day to the next. The second is, if you believe, like I do, that people haven't changed, good communication hasn't changed either. It's about 3 C's. It's about clarity of message. It's about consistency in how you deliver it. And it's about creativity above all. Because remember, new and different, familiar. And that's the job that I come to an agency to do, to help me figure out and resolve that paradox in a way that drives my business. Now, I'm a fan of technology. And as a whole, I think technology is vastly changing our industry and actually our lives. But the truth is that time and again, we get fooled by individual pieces of technology or someone coming and telling us that this technology, this application will solve our problems. So I'm very concerned about fraud, and I'm very concerned about hype. And I want us to be very clear-minded about evaluating a particular vendor or a particular solution when it comes to solving my business problems. Fourth, I was asked, what about roster? How big is my roster? My preference is for a smallest number possible of talented, honest people, because I want to have those kind of relationships, and they require time investment, and I'm willing to make the investment, but I have 24 hours just like you. So the fewer partners I can have, the better off I am, and I think the better off my partners are. Last, I want to return to the RFP. Show honesty and love. I invited 7 agencies to pitch business for Schuman Cheese for the whole thing, our B2B marketing as well as our B2C. Of the 7, 2 never responded. Never sent an email, never said no thanks, nothing, just dead silence. That left 5. Of the 5, every single one of the 5 asked me, how much money do you have to spend? That's okay. I don't mind. It doesn't hurt my feeling. That's the honesty part, right? You got to know the business is worth bidding. I wasn't put off by that at all. I told everyone the same. One of them came back with the dollar figure and said, well, you should work with me because I work with all your competitors, and I do great work. That was it. That was the whole pitch. So then I had 4. Of the 4, 2 came in and showed me really a wonderful, real exciting work. I see some of the ads on TV today. I see them online. Great work, but the problem is that their work had absolutely nothing to do with me because neither one of them asked one single question about my business. Not one question. Where is the love? Where's the love? That left 2, and these 2 were the only 2 who were ever really in it to begin with, because they not only asked a question, they asked questions, hours of questions, probing, trying to understand my business, what mattered to me. And I was willing to spend the time, because how stupid would I be to hide all of the things that are important to me and all of the challenges I have from people that I want to be my partner. And so I spent that time with both of those agencies. And honestly, and they were all talented, by the way. Every one of these agencies was talented. I chose the one that had the highest level of empathy, and I believe would be the most honest and the best business partner for me based on honesty, love, and a willingness to engage in conflict. So that's my mind. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Who's your agency?
My agency is Partners in Napier, Rochester, New York.
So again, Slido. This is like our chance here to ask lots of great questions. So we had talked on the phone. We shared some questions ahead of time. I'm going to ask that crazy question that sort of kind of just get us off to the right foot. There's this trend to have celebrities come in to be a CMO, CCO, all that. Who would be your celebrity that you would put on staff to be, represent your brand and sort of create with you? And then we'll get into the harder questions.
So
Jim.
you got me because earlier today I said, oh, those questions. But there was one that I thought about, and I picked the right one. So I picked this one to think about before I came. I would pick Jordan Peele. And I would pick Jordan Peele because he has turned a genre that has kind of wandered into sort of honestly, a kind of boring place. How many times can you slash? Into something that has a much bigger cultural impact. And I really am looking for people who will take the familiar and turn it into something exciting. So he would be my pick.
Yeah,
but
awesome.
I'm not, Sharon, I'm not, there's nothing out there.
Sam?
We all laughed on the phone, so I didn't think that question really be answered.
I figured I'd start with the easiest question.
But that said, and you guys will laugh, I think it's somebody like Reese Witherspoon, who is reinventing herself, who's doing the right things, but also is very relatable, very trustworthy. One of our things for our big members, our members are very serious about our authenticity. And if we do something that's off-brand, believe me, they write, they call, et cetera, et cetera. And I just feel like she's the kind of person who's very authentic and true, and you can relate to her. So that would be my vote.
Yeah, this was a tough one. Truthfully, when I think about it, it's probably less for me like celebrity than sort of just an interesting person who's built something. So I think about either like Ben Lieberman and Pinterest, or I think about someone who came in, crowdsourced, really figured out how people behave, their passions, and really created something out of it that has been just game-changing and really sort of applies. But if I was picking like one probably sort of off the mark would be, because we do work with some celebrities, is I would think, Kylie Jenner, because I think she's not just been, you look at the Kardashians as a whole, but when you look at Kylie and, working with I've talked to some people in the beauty industry, they call it the Kylie factor, and really how she's come in and been a disruptor, but not just sort of on a trendsetter celebrity sort of way, but really built a massive business and is on track to be the youngest, person to become a billionaire that's self-made. So you just think, okay, there's some real roots of what she does and how she's done it to do that.
Excellent. So I'm going to have us call up Slido. But, Pam, you did work on the agency side before. You were gracious as sharing the do's and don'ts. What made you kind of go want to be on the client side after a career and on the agency side? And what was the attraction? What was the most surprising aspect of that for you?
Well, I was working on this brand on the agency side. So I knew the brand well. I loved their culture in the context of, it was one of those things that excited me too. It was part of their orientation. Their mission is real. When I look at what we do for service members and things that, it just felt like this really is a brand with a calling. This is a brand with a mission. And for me, I felt incredibly blessed to have that opportunity late in my career to go work on a brand and touch bases with whether it's public relations, whether it's our data, whether it's our market research, and have that really as an integrated offering. So I felt like for me, it was just a nice transition to take a brand that I already loved and then go work client side and do more with it and develop it and grow it. I will tell you the biggest surprise was it's harder than you think because like my marketing department's 147 people. Some of those have been there for a long time and are very, very good at what they do. we had also a lot of outdated process and procedures. And one of the things that I took right away is like, wow, people are going to be so excited about change. And let's just say some are, and then 20% were like, fine, let's see what happens. So moving that 20%, your distractors and stuff, has been a lot harder than I thought. And just like, I think somebody said, when you're doing change, you've got to tell people what you're going for, but why. And I think you also have to have an effective frequency level of like 11. You know, keep reminding them why we're doing it. We implemented a lot of training, and some people were like, why do I have to go? I never had to go to training. What do you mean I have to go? You know, so things like that were just contrary to me. So working through all that, but that was the biggest change.
So I'm kind of curious, you know, we talk about this a lot. How important is spec creative in the pitch process? Like, is that real? Like, you know, Jim, you talked about like it was a chemistry and knowledge and all that, but it is spec creative, and how does that help you with the other people that you work with in making the decision?
I guess I'd almost turn that around and ask, how important is spec creative to you in communicating your vision for what you can do for my business? And there were some agencies where spec creative mattered, but of the 4 that remained in, well, the 2 obviously had no spec creative. I don't believe there was any spec creative, and it was really a conversation around, let me show you how we think about business and we think about a brand like yours. I didn't need to see spec creative.
Tanuja?
Yeah, I would say really in knowing your audience, because sometimes you're going in and you have a wide range of people in the room that you're presenting to, and if you're delivering something more complicated, I work in the digital space, so it's easy for me to sort of fast forward, oh, okay, this will happen, this, but there's a lot of people in that room that are not, and I think that it really helps in a long way to do the storytelling, so people could sort of visualize what you're trying to communicate in that vision.
So there's a question here. How does agency positioning, the positioning of the agency, how does that help you guys decide who to even bring in? You said you had opened up to 7, and you know, and it was a whittling down process, but there is this, how does agency positioning, how the agency positions their uniqueness impact your view of them in a pitch situation, or are we all freaking the same?
You're not all freaking the same. First of all, I knew I had a bias against going with a very, very large agency because I was worried we'd be lost, to be honest. Very small company launching brands, so concern in a large agency would be lost. Second, I wanted someone who had CPG experience, at least in food. You know, could be restaurant and food. The most important thing for me, though, was I looked at award-winning agencies. So the IPA slide that was up earlier was very important to me, and I wanted someone who had demonstrated their ability to communicate well by winning awards. That was my metric.
Yeah. Pam?
And we're a little bit different. We don't really care about awards. You know, we wanted, you know, for us what's important, but if I go back to your real question, which is about spec creative, I have mixed feelings about spec creative because I also don't know who did it. Did you hire a freelancer? So then if I hire the agency who showed that, am I really getting that talent?
Is this because you know too much?
It's probably because I know too much. So I'm more about looking at a reel. And even though some of that may have been done by freelancers, I know you had to bring those people in to have the right talent. So I'm more looking at the reel and have you done work that really helped define a brand and set them on the right course.
Yeah, I would say too is if you're coming in on something that's a little foreign to the client, so some area of either a technology or something that being able to position yourself, the whole goal is to take the fear away for the client to go into certain areas. That's been, like I've been in digital now 21 years, so I had to help the internal teams navigate a space that they're not comfortable with. So I would say the same thing if you're an agency coming into pitch and this is the first time you're doing an AI project or something to do with personalization. So if you could be the ones to say, hey, you're going to help guide us, and I just am confident that you know what you're doing in this space to take us down there.
So what services are you building in-house? And like what was sort of the driver towards building that? Why don't we start with you?
A lot more of, nowadays that blurring line, I think we saw a little bit of it, is where infrastructure and other departments are involved. Because of things like, you know, the cloud services and that's out there, it's bringing IT and other groups into the decision making. So sometimes too, it's And I'm sorry, what was the question?
What services you're bringing in-house,
Okay.
building in-house?
So when it comes to that, we've needed to have some people in-house trained on certain things, because if the IT group is going to be doing something, then we need to make sure that they know it. The other piece is I run the social media and e-commerce teams. So for social media, we have our agency partner, Marcus Thomas, doing a lot more of the strategic work to help us come up with the big ideas. But a lot of the day-to-day work of community management, customer care, live chat, all of that's run in-house. And again, those are things that are very close to the end consumer that we try to get more focus on internally. But definitely the tech or the things that we're testing and learning, let's go first test and learn with some partners or somebody outside. If we feel it's a critical part of our go-to-market strategy ongoing, then maybe we need to develop an in-house capability.
Pam, how about you?
We do direct mail in-house. We do all the branch collateral materials in-house. We do content creation in-house, but we also have a partner that helps supplement with us the same way. CorpCom, we have an in-house group, but also an agency that supplements and helps amplify each other's efforts. We have a lot of data scientists and specialists in-house that help us kind of work with outside partners on that. So we're a little bit of a hybrid, I think. We do some research ourselves, but we also use our research team to work with outside providers too.
Now, how many agencies on your rosters, would you say?
True Agencies is an advertising agency and a PR agency for me.
Okay.
One.
We probably have a range of big and small for project work, so we probably have at least 10 to 15 agencies, and then additionally some vendors. So like when I think about Bazaar Voice or different partners like that, we have that also, companies that we work with.
Wow. We just won a new piece of business, and they have 70 agencies. Oof. That's part 7-0. Part of the reason to hire was to bring this in. It's worldwide.
But
So
you nailed it. So what's defined as an agency? Because we
Yeah.
have social media partners,
Yeah.
but also
Platforms,
our advertising
tech
agencies
team.
involved in that, our in-house teams involved
Yeah.
in that, there's platforms involved in that. So
yeah, I think it varies by company. Unfortunately, we are out of time. These guys did an amazing job of. They actually did an amazing job of answering a lot of the questions that I had posed in their presentations, which was fantastic. But one of the things that we asked them to do is to provide a key takeaway from what they were talking about, a single piece of advice to management practitioners. So Tanuja, you're first up.
Okay, so there's lots of different things, but one thing I would say was on the second bullet here is that, or a third bullet, when it comes to RFPs, a lot of times you are being asked when you see a brief or you hear the client say, oh, we want really innovation and out of the box thinking. I would say to really know your client, because as much as they may say they're innovative and all that, to really know, okay, what is that they're really like? Because I can't tell you how many pitches I've sat in where people have come up, especially from my nasty days to BEHR, where afterwards, people had, were really mixed. The advice I'd give you is when you come into pitch is to have 3 ideas. One that is the safe, one that's close, the conservative, something exactly like they would do it, one that's way far out, that's really pushing boundaries, and then a third one that's in the middle. And why I say that is because if you have one that's sort of safe, then it takes off the table what I used to hear in the background was, oh, they don't get us, right? Because if you go too far out, then it's like, oh, they don't understand our objective and our challenges. So give them the safe one. And I equate it to just like House Hunters. If you ever watch House Hunters, there's the one that's on budget, that doesn't have what you really want, the one that's way too expensive, and that one that's right in the middle that lets you land. And I think it's human nature when you have 3 that then you can actually push them a little further out and have permission to do so.
Pam?
as a new client, it's interesting. Yes, we were asked for 1 key takeaway, but as all clients, I have 3. So we always want more. And mine is simple. Know me better, help me faster, and wow me everywhere. And when I say know me better, it's know me, know the brand, know the business. And also when I say know me, know how we make decisions. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out data's important, bring it. You know, help me faster. Speed is really a big part of the currency in which we're paying, so help us do that. We brought a vendor on board for some video production that mirrored what you showed, that basically did videos in a third of the cost and a third of the time. And guess what? We're doing more with them. And speed was great and the quality was there. And then just look for ways to surprise me in terms of that surprise and delight. I'll give an example this morning just from our PR agency, and that we had this great idea for military appreciation. By the way, all of you in social media in the month of May, go out and show some love for military services, and we're doing a penny for thanks. And I loved the idea. Fitzgerald and Company came up with the idea, and I said, the only thing I was a little concerned about is, will it ever feel like that penny wasn't enough? Will it seem insincere that we're giving a penny for the thanks? So I sent it to the PR agency and said, you know, let's chat about this. But by the time we got on the phone, immediately they were like, here's the other brands that have done it, here's the response they got, here's the feedback. I mean, like they came prepared before we ever talked. All it took, and that was a wow me, you know. And so that's what I'm saying. Wow me everywhere doesn't have to be giant. It's just being looking for ways to surprise and help us all get ahead and keep ahead.
Yeah. And Jim.
So my company makes cheese. You make advertising, but we're really not in either of those businesses. After the product's made, we're in the human connection and human persuasion business. So for humans, the number one rule is to be real. Be real about what you can do and what you need from me, and I'll try to do the same. That's it.
Wow, that was great.